Here comes the sun. Do do do. Yo, what is up, family? Billy back with another Chicago Sports Paradise from the front room. All right, today, little late, but we're gonna go over the preseason stats for the Chicago Bears a little bit. I know preseason doesn't really determine regular season success, but I kind of did all the work as far as research to check out the stats. So we're going to go over all the stats a little bit, all right? And get everybody a little familiar with a lot of the Bears reserves, cuz over the preseason a lot of the starters, not a lot of the starters, but we'll just say there's more people on the team that get an opportunity to shine, right? So we'll just go over the in case anybody didn't know, more of the players that played. So we'll just go over that a little bit. Of course, Justin Fields, right? Justin Fields went 23 for 30, and he didn't play too much. I mean, he played the whole first half of the third game. So he played a little bit, but Nathan Peterman played, Trevor Siemian played. I think Siemian got 1 or 2 touchdowns. I mean, we won. We went undefeated throughout the preseason, so quarterback play was good. I didn't really go over the stats of the backup quarterbacks, which I should have, because, Justin Fields only got 3 passing touchdowns in all 3 games. I think all of those passing touchdowns came in the third game. So I think Trevor Siemian got 2 or 3 in the first game. Nathan Peterman maybe threw for 1, in all 3 games, and we went undefeated. So, they played decently, right? They played all right. So, in the running game, right, David Montgomery didn't play a lot. He didn't play a lot, which was probably the right decision by the coaching staff to not play the starting running back, right? He ran for 28 yards, which is only 6 more yards than Justin Fields ran for. Justin Fields ran for 22 rushing yards in all 3 games. You take those 3 games, put them together, he ran for 22 yards. All right, so let's rewind a little bit, right? Go over Justin Fields' passing stats a little bit. He's 23 for 30 for 243 yards, which is over 10 yards per attempt or per completion. Or, no, I'm sorry, I was right the first time, per attempt, which is not bad, right? Which is not bad. I was right the second time, per completion. 243 yards, 23 completions, right? So you figure a little bit over 10. That was pretty good, right? 76.7% completion rating, which is pretty good. I would love to have 100% completion rating, but you got to take into account drops. You got to take into account the defensive line, the pass rush. You got to take into account, there's so many things you have to consider when considering completion percentage, right? 76.7 is pretty good. Now, let's remember, it's still preseason. So all of these stats, I don't want to say they're padded, but when you talk about reserves playing, that's also the opposing defense, right? So you have, he had 3 touchdowns. Like I said, I think all of those came in the third game, in the last game, which we squeaked out. I think it was 21-20 or 22-21. Squeaked it out, but a dub's a dub, right? So he had his what's it called? I can't think of it right now. that number, it's not the completion percentage, but it's 133.1, right? So it's not the completion percentage. It's I can't, but y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all watch the Bears. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I think the perfect percentage is like 158.6 or something like that. You know, like I said, he had 22 rushing yards. He was under a lot of pressure the entire the entire preseason, but the coaching staff was mindful enough to put him on a lot of rollouts. You know, he was mindful enough to go, and it seemed like he went through his progressions. At least his second went through his first progression, went through his second progression, and then took off. As opposed to last year, when he was just taking off, right? But then also, it seemed like Coach Nagy and the offensive coordinator from last year, they didn't really take into consideration the fact that we didn't have a good offensive line. You know, they were just 3-step drops, 5-step drops, and he was in trouble a lot. I think last year he only threw 7 touchdowns and threw 10 interceptions. So those are not good stats. Okay, so let's move past Justin Fields right now, right? Let's move to the running backs. So the top runner in this preseason was a gentleman by the name of Darrington Evans. So I like this guy. I like this guy a lot. He got a lot of looks in the preseason, which means he probably had a decent training camp, right? Which is good, which is really good because you got a lot of guys that come in trying to make the team, right? And anybody that performs well, you got to be a big fan of. So I like this guy, 77 rushing yards. Tristan Ebner is a guy we got out of the draft. Now, it seems like, which is a good way to go about a rebuild, I think. It seems like, from you look at the depth chart, you look at the people that performed well during the preseason, it seems like the team's going a lot younger. A lot of the draft picks are starting. Velus Jones Jr. is starting at wide receiver. Of course, you got Justin Fields, who's third year, I believe. So he's not a rookie. He didn't come from this past draft, but you got a lot of draft picks coming from this past draft that are starting. I personally like to see that. You know, if you evaluate a talent coming out of the draft, he's an NFL talent, right? Might as well start him, right? Might as well get all the value out of him you can. You know, if you evaluate an NFL talent, you want to say, hey, you want him to learn the offense, learn the scheme as soon as possible, get him started in the games. You know what I mean? So that's really good. I really like seeing that. And Khalil Herbert, which is the backup, pretty sure he's going to play the backup role behind David Montgomery this year. He only ran for 41 yards. But again, this is a preseason. You got a bunch of different guys vying for playing time. So, you know, you got to kind of understand that. I mean, David Montgomery, he had the least amount of yards. He had 28 yards. The least amount of yards out of all the running backs. But he's a starter, you know. Second least was Khalil Herbert, which is going to be the backup. Third least, Tristan Ebner. Fourth, or the most yards, Darrington Evans. So it's basically the depth chart for running back flipped, you know, which is wild. As far as wide receivers, you got topping out, in first place in the receiving catches, yards, all of that is Isaiah Coulter. He balled out. You know what I mean? He balled out this year. And I think don't quote me on this, but I think he's a rookie. I mean, he had 13 targets, 8 receptions, 112 yards, and 14 yards after the catch. Now, which was an interesting stat. When I was doing research on this, he had 13 targets and 8 receptions, but 0 drops. So you talk about, I don't know, overthrows, pass breakups, like I said earlier, you got to take a lot of these things into consideration. I don't know what that's all about, but, moving on, we got Cole Kmet, our starting tight end, 6 targets for 5 receptions, 67 yards, and 26 yak yards. So he played decent in the preseason. He played really well. Dante Pettis, who had 4 targets for 4 receptions, 62 yards, and 6 yak yards. He had a good preseason. Nasimba Webster, I think that's how you say his first name. Don't quote me on that. He had 12 targets for 6 receptions. Now, I see the targets can be like wonky, right? Because you're targeting the guy. So if it's scheme wise and the guy's being targeted, then all right, you see this guy as a target. You know what I'm saying? You see this guy as like, all right, let's design this play just for this guy, right? But then you say, all right, was this guy the 3rd target? Was Justin Fields on a rollout and this guy just so happened to come open and he got a target? But for whatever reason, Nasimba Webster, let's keep an eye on that dude, right? 12 targets for 6 yards, or 6 receptions, 46 yards. Darnell Mooney, right? 4 targets for 3 receptions, 37 yards. Now he's probably going to be the number 1 receiver. If you could take any receiver out of this roster, he's probably going to be the number 1. And to see him so low as far as stats, as far as wide receiving stats go, you like to see that. That means a lot of the younger guys are performing, right? So let's hope that these young guys, that their success from the preseason translates into success from the regular season. And let's hope these young guys can push these older guys to perform a little bit better. You got Ryan Griffin, I think that's his first name. I don't know. I just put R. Griffin, so I don't know. He's going to be a backup tight end. He had 1 target, 1 reception. It was a touchdown in I can't remember which game it was, but he had a touchdown catch in the end zone. Perfectly placed ball, right? Dropped it right in the bucket between right in back of the cornerback and in front of the safety. Perfectly caught in the end zone. Griffin. Let's move to the kicker, Cairo Santos, right? Man, he had a pretty good preseason. He was 4 for 5 field goals. A 47-yard was his long. He had 19 points, which tops the team, which is the most points on the roster. Which, I mean, that's the case with kickers, right? Because all the points that they get is going directly to them, So he had 19 points. His extra points, 7 for 7. You love to see that. You don't want to see a guy miss any extra points. So I love to see that he went 7 for 7. And kick returners, right? Kick returners, I like this. I like looking at these stats because you can cycle a lot of guys in and out. Kick return, punt return. So I really like to see that. So you got a good gauge on punt and kick returners, right? You got Nasimba Webster, which was a wide receiver, the wide receiver with 12 targets, which was nice to see that he can be a good kick returner. And he returned a punt for 7 yards, which, you'd like to see more yards, but I can't even imagine sitting back there and, looking up, catching a ball while people are running as fast as they can at you. I couldn't even imagine. So the fact that he got any punt return yards is good for him. It was good for us. He had 1 kick return for 58 yards, guys. 58 yards. That's big. That's big. Tristan Ebner had 2 kick returns for 53 yards. That's good. That's great. That's what, 26 and a half yards per return. That's awesome. You gotta really praise that. You gotta love that. Velus Jones Jr., when he was drafted as a wide receiver, but when he was drafted, what I saw was that's how he was gonna be kind of spotlighted, as a kick returner or punt returner. So he had one kick return for 31 yards. You love to see that, right? He had 2 punt returns and 47 punt return yards. So that's a little shifty. You know what I mean? Love to see that. Dante Pettis, another wide receiver, 3 punt returns for 26 yards. That's amazing, guys. That's amazing. Like I said, these stats, right? They're not absolutely gonna transfer over to the regular season, but we went undefeated, so every player on this team contributed to the team well enough that we could win all the games. So you love to see that, guys. We got the game coming up tomorrow. I'm gonna try to kick out a preview for the Bears 49ers game for tomorrow. Hopefully I can catch the game. That would be sweet. But I could do like I've been doing, try to analyze the highlights a little bit, bring y'all some analysis coming from me. Hopefully make these videos a little more eventful, bring a little more eyes, make it a little more funny, add some more of my personality so you guys can tune in and share and do all that stuff. Like, comment, subscribe, share, comment for sure, guys, because, man, I love to see y'all comment. I love to see y'all comment. Throw the videos on in the background if you don't want to watch, The watch time really, really helps. You know what I mean? Throw it on in the background. Put it on your kid's iPad. Let him watch. Let him or her watch. I'm down whatever. Hey, welcome kids of all ages. Grown kids, ungrown kids, you know what I mean? So, I'll see y'all later. Go Bears.